Your word is capricious. Spell pneumoencephalography. All right, spell quadrimodative. Spell hypoparathyroidism. All right, spell hippopotamonspersusquipedaliophobia. All right, spell xylotypographic. Can you spell quadrimodative? Your word is bourgeoisification. All right, spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Next up, anti-disestablishmentarianism. All right, spell honorificabilitudinity. The next word is autothaumaturgist. The next word is convolvulaceous. All right, spell arthroeresis. The next word is institutionalization. Next up, gastroenterologist. Your word is glyceraldehyde. Spell otorhinolaryngological. The next word is psychophysicotherapeutics. Spell psychoneuroendocrinological. All right, spell parallelogrammatic. The next word is pneumoencephalography. Spell radiometeorograph. Spell pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. Spell adrenocorticotrophin. The next word is oligonucleotide. Next up, psychoneuroimmunology. Can you spell polyphyloprogenitive? Can you spell quindicasyllabic? Next up, floxinaucinihilipilification. The next word is bourgeoisie. Next up, anthropomorphization. Spell ethnomethodology. Your word is antediluvian. All right, spell verisimilitude. Spell gubernatorial. All right, spell absquatulate. Can you spell allotransplantation? Spell susurration. Spell capoeira. Your word is utilitarianism. The next word is aegis. Can you spell syzygy? Next up, subpoena. All right, spell quasquicentennial. Can you spell soliloquy? Your word is infinitesimal. All right, spell labyrinthine. Next up, dendrochronology. Can you spell subcompartmentalization? Spell lepidopterology. Can you spell robust? Your word is serendipity. All right, spell onomatopoeia. Can you spell batrachophobia? Your word is spell unintelligible. Can you spell ban? Can you spell fuchsia? The next word is jurisprudence. Your word is languid. Next up. All right, spell enact. Spell hotel. Can you spell forbid? The next word is pasta. Next up, infundibulum. The next word is paradigm. Your word is workout. Your word is prestidigitation. Your word is utilitarianism. Spell subcompartmentalization. All right, spell jurisprudence. Spell serendipity. All right, spell pulchritudinous. Your word is neuropsychological. Can you spell acquiesce? Next up, capoeira. Next up, susurration. Spell institutionalization. Can you spell psychoneuroendocrinological? Spell quindecasyllabic. All right, spell psychoneuroimmunology. Your word is anthropomorphization. All right, spell dichotomization. Spell Cyrillic. Can you spell thalassophobia? Next up, batrachophobia. Next up, baccalaureate. Next up, borborygmus. Borborygmus. Your word is subpoena. Next up, supererogatory. Your word is Worcestershire. Spell apocryphal. Your word is iconoclast. Your word is prognostication. Spell superferromagnetism. All right, spell Bogolonfini. Spell infundibulum. Next up, aegis. Next up, dendrochronology. Your word is portmanteau. All right, spell compartmentalization. Next up, contradistinguish. Can you spell perspicacious? Spell inchoate. The next word is capoeira. Your word is entrepreneur. All right, spell paraphernalia. Next up, acromatophilia. All right, spell Buckminster fullerene. The next word is paradigm. The next word is onomatopoeia. Spell apocryphal. Your word is honorific abilitudinity. All right, spell floxinocini-hilipilification. Spell psychoneuroimmunology. Next up, pneumoencephalography. Can you spell convolvulaceous? Next up, institutionalization. All right, spell polyphyloprogenitive. The next word is autothaumaturgist. Can you spell radiometeorograph? All right, spell bourgeoisie. All right, spell hypoparathyroidism. The next word is gastroenterologist. Spell arthroeresis. Your word is hippopotamonstrosusquipedaliophobia. Your word is psychoneuroendocrinological. All right, spell xylotypographic. Can you spell psychophysicotherapeutics? All right, spell bourgeoisification. Can you spell otorhinolaryngological? All right, spell quadrimodotative. Your word is anti-disestablishmentarianism. Can you spell oligonucleotide? Can you spell quindecasyllabic? Your word is parallelogrammatic. Spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Can you spell pseudo-hypoparathyroidism? The next word is ethnomethodology. The next word is glyceraldehyde. The next word is adrenocorticotrophin. The next word is anthropomorphization. All right, spell quindecasyllabic. All right, spell pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. Spell otorhinolaryngological. Next up, bourgeoisification. All right, spell bourgeoisie. Spell radiometeorograph. Spell psychoneuroendocrinological. All right, spell anthropomorphization. The next word is utilitarianism. Spell prognostication. Spell capoeira. Your word is incomprehensibility. Your word is sequoia. Can you spell hieroglyphics? The next word is infundibulum. Your word is onomatopoeia. All right, spell Cyrillic. Next up, apocryphal. Next up, bureaucracy. All right, spell compartmentalization. All right, spell batrachophobia. Spell baccalaureate. Spell borborygmus. Next up, verisimilitude. All right, spell subcompartmentalization. Spell soliloquy. Spell acquiesce. Next up, sesquipedalian. The next word is labyrinthine. All right, spell pusillanimous. The next word is antediluvian. Spell Bogolanfini. Next up, acromatophilia. Next up, pulchritudinous. Your word is languid. The next word is portmanteau. The next word is allotransplantation. All right, spell gubernatorial. All right, spell oligonucleotide. Your word is convolvulaceous. Next up, quasquicentennial. The next word is anachronistic. Can you spell abakashi? The next word is lepidopterology. All right, spell Buckminster fullerene. All right, spell thalassophobia. Next up, quixotry. Spell jurisprudence. Can you spell isthmus? Your word is subpoena. All right, spell paradigm. Next up, prestidigitation. Next up, syzygy. Your word is neuropsychological. Your word is superferromagnetism. The next word is paroxysm. Your word is acetaminophen. Your word is infinitesimal. Can you spell capricious? The next word is supererogatory. The next word is inchoate. Your word is fuchsia. Spell paraphernalia. Your word is fossiliferous. Next up, iconoclast. All right, spell contradistinguish. Next up, deoxyribonucleic. Your word is aegis. The next word is Worcestershire. Spell rhinorrhgia. All right, spell honorific abilitudinity. Can you spell ethnomethodology? The next word is gastroenterologist. Next up, hypoparathyroidism. Next up, adrenocorticotrophin. Next up, parallelogrammatic. Your word is arthroeresis. All right, spell quadammodative. Can you spell glyceraldehyde? Next up, floxinosinyhilipilification. Next up, pneumoencephalography. Can you spell psychophysicotherapeutics? Spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Your word is psychoneuroimmunology. Your word is xylotypographic. Next up, institutionalization. Can you spell autothaumaturgist? All right, spell polyphyloprogenitive. All right, spell anti-disestablishmentarianism. The next word is hippopotamonstrosusquipedaliophobia. Your word is glyceraldehyde. The next word is polyphyloprogenitive. The next word is xylotypographic. Your word is arthroeresis. Can you spell otorhinolaryngological? Next up, ethnomethodology. Your word is convolvulaceous. The next word is bourgeoisification. Next up, honorific abilitudinity. All right, spell anti-disestablishmentarianism. Spell pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. Spell hypoparathyroidism. Spell psychoneuroimmunology. All right, spell psychoneuroendocrinological. Your word is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Next up, parallelogrammatic. Your word is anthropomorphization. Can you spell floxinosinyhilipilification? Your word is oligonucleotide. Can you spell gastroenterologist? Spell hippopotamonstrosusquipedaliophobia. Next up, subpoena. Next up, antediluvian. All right, spell acetaminophen. All right, spell paraphernalia. Next up, deoxyribonucleic. Next up, perspicacious. The next word is onomatopoeia. Your word is paroxysm. Spell pusillanimous. Can you spell capricious? Spell portmanteau. All right, spell bureaucracy. Spell languid. Can you spell verisimilitude? Next up, rhinorrhgia. Next up, infinitesimal. The next word is Buckminster fullerene. All right, spell apocryphal. Your word is dichotomization. All right, spell inchoate. All right, spell quixotry. Next up, Worcestershire. Spell Incomprehensibility. Spell milieu. Your word is hieroglyphics. All right, spell paradigm. Next up, achromatophilia. Your word is quasquicentennial. Can you spell utilitarianism? All right, spell compartmentalization. Next up, quadrimodative. Next up, autothaumaturgist. Spell quindecasyllabic. Can you spell pneumoencephalography? Spell institutionalization. Next up, adrenocorticotrophin. Next up, bourgeoisie. Can you spell psychophysicotherapeutics? Spell radiometeorograph. The next word is institutionalization. The next word is quindecasyllabic. Next up, pneumoencephalography. The next word is hippopotamonstrosusquipedaliophobia. The next word is psychophysicotherapeutics. Next up, autothaumaturgist. The next word is oligonucleotide. Next up, honorific abilitudinity. Next up, adrenocorticotrophin. Can you spell parallelogrammatic? The next word is convolvulaceous. The next word is xylotypographic. Next up, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. All right, spell hypoparathyroidism. Can you spell anthropomorphization? Your word is psychoneuroendocrinological. The next word is bourgeoisie. Your word is anti-disestablishmentarianism. Next up, fuchsia. Next up, apocryphal. All right, spell antediluvian. All right, spell sesquipedalian. Can you spell utilitarianism? Spell acetaminophen. All right, spell achromatophil. The next word is allotransplantation. Next up, aegis. All right, spell quixotry. Your word is incomprehensibility. Your word is thalassophobia. All right, spell syzygy. Next up, batrachophobia. Your word is soliloquy. The next word is Buckminster Fullerene. Your word is pulchritudinous. Spell neuropsychological. Next up, gubernatorial. The next word is perspicacious. Spell capoeira. The next word is Worcestershire. Next up, supererogatory. All right, spell dichotomization. The next word is subpoena. Can you spell superferromagnetism? Spell abakashi. Next up, isthmus. All right, spell Cyrillic. All right, spell portmanteau. The next word is psychoneuroimmunology. Your word is gastroenterologist. Your word is pseudo-hypoparathyroidism. Can you spell polyphyloprogenitive? The next word is quadrimodotative. All right, spell radiometeorograph. Spell glyceraldehyde. Next up, otorhinolaryngological. Your word is floxinocinihilipilification. All right, spell bourgeoisification. Spell arthroeresis. All right, spell ethnomethodology. The next word is psychoneuroendocrinological. The next word is